Hello, how's it going? It's Elena. I feel like I have a bit of a theme for this year. I'm having a bit of a quarter life crisis. I'm feeling a little stuck. I've been feeling a little directionless. Maybe it's just the symptoms of being in your mid, edging on late 20s. You're like, what am I supposed to do now? What's next? What a better idea than try to fix that in a week with self-help books. Like, this will work. Right? So I was inspired by my good friend Jack Edwards and his video on self-help books, and I decided, let's make a challenge out of this crisis in my life and read 5 self-help books in 5 days. Like many people, I of course have a bit of a love-hate relationship with this genre. On one hand, in an ideal world, these authors are writing these books to hopefully improve people's lives. On the other hand, there's a lot of crappy self-help books out there. I tried to pick books with a wide range from the self-help genre while touching on some of the most popular of all time. So we have How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Psychology of Money, Daring Greatly, Atomic Habits. I hope I'll gain some more clarity in my life, maybe get some more emotional understanding, make some more friends, be better with money. I'm basically doing this so you don't have to, and I love to read, so I figured it'd be kind of a fun challenge to get myself to read 1 a day. Let's get to reading some self-help books, and I'll see you on the first day of reading. It's day 1. I've got my first book. We have a very gloomy day here in New York City, so it's kind of perfect for just holding inside and reading all day. How to Win Friends and Influence People, the only book you need to lead you to success by good old Dale Carnegie. This was written in 1936, I believe. You probably heard of it. It's one of the best-selling self-help books of all time. This book is basically all about how to communicate and have good relationships, be a good leader. Let's start reading. All right, I've gone about 100 pages in, figured I'd do like a little halfway checkpoint. I feel like it's teaching you very basic social skills, which I feel like ideally most people in your life would already know. But for anybody out there who maybe needs a little help with the old social skills, just passive aggressively give them this book. I will say there are a lot of just good tidbits on just being a better human, asking questions, being kind, giving people the benefit of the doubt. The anecdotes are quite hyperbolic to the point where it's a little grating, and then I have to remind myself okay, this was written in 1936. We gotta give Dale credit for the fact that this book is still feels relevant almost 100 years later. I feel like the great epiphany that I'm getting so far is that when you're nice, people are nice back. Let's finish her up. I'm back quite a bit later. First and foremost, do you need to read this whole book? I'm gonna say no. It's broken down into 4 sections. I feel like you could go off those 4 different sections and kind of pick and choose what you want. I think at the end of the day, while this book wasn't profoundly transformational by any means, it encourages you to genuinely be interested in other people, put yourself in their shoes. In terms of my quarter life crisis, this book has not helped that much, but I will say it's good text to just be read in school nonetheless. On that note, I'm tired and I need to have dinner. Book 1 down, on to the next. New day, new book, and we are reading the one, the only Brené Brown, Daring Greatly. And this is all about how the courage to be vulnerable transforms the way we love, live, parent, and lead. I'm not a parent, but I do live in love. I often feel too like I exist in a more analytical headspace. I'm a thinker over a feeler, and I get very nervous to tap into my emotions and lead with my heart over my head. But I feel like that's a good challenge for me. I've had it on my bookshelf for a really long time, and I've honestly just kind of ignored it. I'm like, vulnerability, but I'm very excited to see what I learned from it. And you know what? It is another very gloomy day in New York, so honestly this is good for reading because there's no sunshine FOMO. Do you guys get that? Let's go to a coffee shop for a few hours and get some reading done there. Let's go. The best weather. We're making do. I'm excited to say we have finished Daring Greatly by Brené Brown, and I really like this book. So she is a shame researcher. I like that it's founded in actually a lot of different scientific stats and different projects that she has been researching. She basically dives into all about what shame and vulnerability is and how they are interlinked. Shame comes from the fear of being judged and of people's opinions on us. And she makes the case that in order to live your life to the fullest extent, you have to be willing to step into that place of vulnerability and dare greatly, if you will. So vulnerability is the core of difficult emotions like fear and grief, disappointment, but also the birthplace of love and creativity and innovation. I feel like this book is especially useful for anybody who wants to put themselves out there, who's especially hard on themselves, who has a hard time being in touch with their emotions, or who wants to try something that's kind of like daring and scary and they're freaked out and you're scared of facing maybe rejection or judgment or failure. But she makes the case for doing that scary thing, taking that situation and knowing that you are still enough no matter the outcome, essentially. One of the things she talked about too that really stuck out to me is how it's kind of revered in our culture, especially American capitalist society, to do it on your own and be really tough. But it's actually brave to need people, which I was like, oh, you got me there. I've always valued, for whatever reasons were drilled into my brain, that it was, important to be independent and to be able to handle things on my own. And I have this distorted sense of pride in independence and being able to fully take care of myself. But it's brave to be vulnerable and to want belonging and to need people. And you know what? I'm tired. I'm tired of steering the ship all by myself. I would love to get some people up here in the deck with me. I feel like this book, a lot of it is definitely pointed towards leaders and parents, etc. But I will say, I found it helpful too if you're in the world of dating. She added this anecdote, which I really liked about this guy who basically asked out this girl. He kind of got rejected and he came back and his friends were like, how did it go? And he's like, she wasn't interested. And we're like, oof, tough dude. And he's like, you know what? I dared greatly. And while that's really cheesy, it actually stuck out to me. He tried his best, he spoke his truth, and now he can look back and be like, hey, I took my shot. There's no wondering what ifs because I went for it. All right, on to the next. I've been reading Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. This is supposed to be like the no BS, not like the other self-help books, guide to living a good life. It sounds a little pick-me, but we're gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. So he starts off by commenting on how most like life guide self-help books are actually focusing on what you lack. It's about how to be prettier, happier, more successful. Our culture is essentially fixated on these unrealistic, extremely positive, really high expectations. Trying to reach that goal ends up making you more discontent because you're instead focusing on the fact that you're lacking all those things. He basically advises us to get to know our limitations and accept them and move forward with those in mind. Basically, we should find meaning through what we value as well as what we can actually control. He calls it the tyranny of exceptionalism. Where this is exasperated in New York, let me tell you, because you are around some of the smartest, most successful, most beautiful people you will come across. And so it's very easy to feel like, oh my God, I should be at that next level, rather than just looking at yourself and accepting where you're at and what you're capable of. You know what? I'm liking this so far. This is a short one, so let's finish it up. Hi, I'm back. It's actually the next day. I got really tired last night and didn't want to film. Finished up Subtle Art by Mark Manson. You know what? I went in being a bit cynical and I found this to actually be a beneficial read. I liked in the second half too, he talks about this chapter called The Power of Saying No, which I'm the queen of FOMO, fear of missing out. I want to keep all my options open, I want to experience everything. But he makes the argument that you have to say no to really live a life of meaning. The example he uses, which I can relate to as someone who does a lot of travel YouTube, is being that like nomadic backpacker and how it's fun for a while, like having your life full of like travel and adventure and meeting all these people. But at the end of the day, those experiences start to become repetitive. The relationships you build are very fleeting because you're on from one spot to the next. And a lot of the beauty of life comes out of saying no to this like plethora of options and opportunities and instead digging into something that really matters, like a career or settling down with like one partner and building a life with them. If you want to focus on the right things that really matter to you, you have to say no to everything else. We're going to have to miss out on things, but you want to make sure you're missing out on the right things. I feel like this book really finished off with helping me focus on what's important to me and what do I value and how do I define success and failure purely for myself, not in like society standards. So in regards to my whole quarter life crisis, I actually found this book very helpful. I get to create my own expectations for my life and I get to choose what is important. So basically choose what are things to give a fuck about at the end of the day. Also incredibly short. The font's pretty big. You can read it quick. All right, I need to go have my proper cup of coffee for the day. Today's book, we've got Atomic Habits. Let's go start our day and get reading, shall we? So, Atomic Habits, I made some progress throughout. An easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. He's basically making the argument that to make changes in your life, it's not about this like massive upheaval and revolution in your life, but it's more about small incremental changes over time that can really lead to big change. So for example, he used this plane story, which I really liked, where if you were trying to fly from, let's say, LA to New York, and the pilot put in different coordinates that only had a 0.2% difference. In theory, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but that could take you, instead of going from New York all the way to Washington, DC. So those small little changes, good or bad, over time can really lead you in a different direction. I think it's important to note when people think about building good habits, they don't always think about breaking down bad habits. He talks about different tips for making it easier as well, like implementation intention. Basically coming up with a plan of intent to figure out where and when you're gonna carry out this certain goal, as well as altering your environment, which is a big one for me. Let me tell you, if there are snacks in my house, I have no control. No control. I would eat an entire bag of Cheez-Its in one sitting, no problem. And so for me, in order to eat healthy, my biggest thing has been literally just not having it in the house. Like the bad food, I just don't buy it. Yes, I still snack, but it's usually when I'm out or because it's not in my own environment, in my own home, I can't reach for it. One other rule that stuck out in this first half is the 2-minute rule, which I like. Any habit, just start with the first 2 minutes. So if you want to run more or exercise more, he's like, just take 2 minutes, put on your shoes, put on your music, and go outside. And then you can decide from there. So I'm currently training for a half marathon. You'd think for committing to such a big goal, I'd have the motivation to actually go through and train. But let me tell you, it's difficult. So once I've actually put on those shoes, stepped outside, and kind of started moving my body, I'm like, all right, let's do this thing. Let's get this running. Basically, any behavior can be distilled down into 2 minutes and helps you kind of build easily achievable results over time. There is some fluff in here for sure, as there are, I'm realizing, with most self-help books. Get to reading. I'll see you tonight. I feel like it's safe to say I kind of hit on some of those key overarching thoughts in this book earlier, but I wanted to talk about one other section I really liked, and that's the habit stacking section. And good old James recommends when there's a habit you want to do, stacking it with something that's already supernatural to your routine, like brushing your teeth. So let's say you want to get better at French and you want to just start with 10 minutes of French every day. I'm going to, every single morning, as soon as I'm finished making my coffee and I'm ready to drink it, that's when I start practicing that habit or practicing French or whatever it is. Just think of one of those things that you do effortlessly every day and then build on that momentum by just sneaking in another habit with it. The quality of your life really depends on your habits, and self-development is all about this delayed gratification. If you want to see change, it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to get a six-pack tomorrow after doing 20 minutes of ab exercises. I think this was an important and helpful reminder that changing your life isn't about having some crazy breakthrough, or actually all about those small little bitty habits that you make every single day that point you in the direction of where you want to be going or potentially pull you away from where you don't want to go. Good morning. Today's gonna look a little bit different because it's a travel day and we're reading The Psychology of Money. Let's grab our suitcase and go. We've made it to the airport. I also got this cool tiny new mic. Let's talk about the psychology of money. At a base level, it's about how to have a better relationship with money. I feel like when we think about money, it all comes down to math and numbers and reality. A lot of how we deal with money comes down to behavior and how we feel about our finances, and that's how we end up reacting. That's how we spend money, that's how we invest, that's how we pull out investments. And so this really shows us how we look and deal with money while giving us healthier tips about how to do that. I see my gate is boarding, so I should probably get up. So we'll read on the plane. I'm going to California, by the way. I'm about halfway through right now, and I think the first half of this book kind of touches on a lot of the financial literacy and education tips you find in a lot of those kind of beginner books. If you're new to my channel, I actually do quite a bit of financial education videos myself, and so some of this might be repetitive if you have seen those videos. I do like that he essentially starts off by saying that you really can't judge people on how they view their money and spend their money because it is so dependent on so many factors, on how we were raised, how we were brought up, and what things we've gone through that can affect our own history when it comes to money. One of the parts too earlier on that I really liked is him having this whole chapter called Never Enough, and it's all about when to know enough is enough. It's so common to be like, wow, one day I would dream of making 6 figures. And then you get to that point and you're like, but wait, I also want that nice car and I gotta get the home. And then that goalpost just goes moving up and up and up, and you're never really able to feel happy with what you have. So figuring out that enough level for yourself is critical for finding financial peace. I want to talk about one of my favorite sections. I'm actually going to read you a quote. This is from chapter 7. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want is priceless. It's the highest dividend money pays. That section alone is such a grounding, important reminder. When you are able to have freedom of your own time, feel some level of peace with your finances and knowing it's enough, is the real game changer of having a life of contentment. A lot of this too, I feel like, is kind of pointed at American culture. It's time for me to go have some dinner, and I'll hopefully finish up this book. Done with the book, ready for bed. I feel like I talked a lot earlier, so I'm gonna keep this short. He talks a lot about your ego. Saving money is the gap between your ego and your income. While he says he can't give you any investing advice because it depends completely on you and your decisions and your behaviors and your goals, he does say, if I had to summarize my view on investing, it's this: every investor should pick a strategy that has the highest odds of successfully meeting their goals. And I think for most investors, dollar cost averaging into low cost index funds will provide you the highest odds of long-term success. Did you hear that across the board? That's how I invest. I talk about that in my own investing videos. Look into that, or check out my videos on Beginner's Guide to Investing. Overall, really enjoyed this book. Alright, we have made it to the end of quite a long week. I know the world of self-help has mixed reactions, but you're getting to basically get access to some of the smartest people in the world and how they think and how they act and how they've approached some of the issues or situations that you're currently facing. I think the most important key is, of course, taking action. It's one thing to read these books, it's another thing to actually act on them and implement them in your life. So, has this helped my quarter life crisis? I think my answer would be kind of. In a way, yes. Like, it did make me reevaluate the way I see success, the things that are important to me, the goals that I may be trying to achieve, and why I'm trying to achieve them. What is my definition of happiness and achievement? And I did learn some tips to, be happier and healthier in my day-to-day life. Like in the psychology of money, and it helped me to redefine what, success, achievement, and happiness looks like. Or like in Atomic Habits, it gave me the tools to make small changes in my day-to-day life to bring me more growth and hopefully joy and contentment over time. Or like in the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, it helped me to stop comparing myself to other people and where I think I should be or where I should be headed, and just focus on what's important to me and where I want to go. So would I recommend you read all of these books? Not necessarily. I think this is part of the self-help book world. I think that these authors, to reach a certain page count, kind of fluff it up. And I feel like honestly a lot of these books could be distilled to just a few main points. All in all, I feel like these books can help you uncover the mess that is your internal world and help you to articulate and work through those thoughts and emotions and feelings and kind of break out of the thought processes you've been stuck in and maybe think or act in a new way. I'm glad I read these books. It was quite the journey. If you enjoyed, please leave a comment, like, subscribe. It helped me out a lot. And on that note, thanks so much for watching. Until next time.